Alrighty, it is 1:30. So for those of you that have joined us on Zoom, thank you very much for coming to the first Ken Reeves Memorial Weather Briefing of the 2022 spring semester. We're privileged to have Dr. Nese here to give today's weather briefing. And without further ado, Dr. Nese, take it away.
Thank you, Kevin. It's always a pleasure to do this because Ken was a friend of mine, friend of many in the department, and we remember him fondly by dedicating these weather briefings to him. Played a huge role in getting AccuWeather and the department involved in doing things together. So I think I will do the following. Say a little bit about the nor'easter, then do some local climatology real quick, talk about the forecast, and close by asking how is your winter outlook working out, given that we are 2/3 of the way through meteorological winter. So here's the snowfall analysis from the nor'easter. It was mostly in terms of significant impacts. It was a coastal event, though, and obviously in Maine, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, it extended into the central parts of those states. Jersey as well. There are some snow totals over on the left. Philly ended up with 7.5 inches. The biggest number I could find was almost 31 in one community in eastern Massachusetts. So this is a pretty impressive storm. Officially, it was a blizzard. If you use the watered down version of the blizzard definition, which doesn't use sustained winds, but winds that frequently gust to 35 miles per hour or more, and the criteria that considering a 1/4 mile visibility and not necessarily less than a 1/4 mile, for the reasons given there in that little bit of a note, 1/4 mile is quite low for an automated sensor to be able to detect in snow or blowing snow. So I'm okay with it. And there are some of the obs from Boston and Providence to document the necessary ingredients. Blizzards are actually pretty hard to come by. It happens much less frequently than you would be led to believe. Blizzard was also confirmed, according to the Weather Service, on the New Jersey coast and the Delaware beaches, though I couldn't find any official observing sites that had the criteria. But that doesn't mean there can't be people there doing the observations at non-ASOS sites. It's worth mentioning that this is prime big nor'easter season. NESIS stands for Northeast Snowstorm Impact Scale. It's a population-weighted snowstorm impact scale developed by Penn State alum Paul Cosin and recently retired director of the National Weather Service, Louis Uccellini. And so we are in prime nor'easter season now. This should come as no surprise. One of the parameters that did pretty well in terms of pinning down where the heaviest band would be was this 700 millibar temperature advection and frontogenesis product from Tropical Tidbits. If you follow the arc of purple contours just to its west is where the heaviest bands set up. And that's not all that unusual. Sometimes it's an 850 millibar advection product, sometimes a 700 millibar advection product. But this is a good bellwether where the frontogenesis is taking place for where you're going to find the heaviest bands in these kinds of storms. I thought these were neat products. Product on the upper left is cumulative maximum reflectivity. So you basically pick the maximum reflectivity at every point during the storm. And that band that's set up over eastern Massachusetts shows up well here, as does some of the bands that brought heavy snow to coastal New Jersey and coastal Delaware and even a little bit of central Delaware. This other product on the bottom right is the snow duration, using 25 dBz as a threshold for what constitutes moderate to heavy snow. And the peak was about 10 hours in eastern Massachusetts. So that must have been fun. I'm sure a lot of people flocked there to just experience the storm. This is one of those storms that actually developed what looked like an eye near the center. These oceanic rapidly developing cyclones often undergo what's called seclusion, not occlusion, but seclusion, which warm air gets sort of cut off right in the middle and sometimes skies clear. This happens with some of the most intense nor'easters, particularly the ones that are where the center is the center really has to be out to sea here. So this was a nice example in the visible from late in the day on Saturday. And I guess this was even I geeked out and had to save a radar scope loop of that band that got into eastern Massachusetts and contributed to the 23.8 inches in Boston. So headlines for us. Next couple days here should feel, Kevin and I were talking, should feel okay compared to recent weeks. Not much wind and quite a few hours above freezing for a change. And then a significant and rather long-lasting, at some places, winter storm is shaping up Tuesday through Friday with impacts from the southern Rockies to the eastern Great Lakes. And ahead of that, here in Happy Valley, bit of a warming trend into Thursday, and then the colder air comes back, leading to another cold weekend. Precip will come in here Wednesday night, probably as rain, but as the cold air comes in, there's going to be a period of sleet and freezing rain and or snow sometime probably later Thursday night into Friday. Still a lot of uncertainty. It's all about how fast that low-level cold air gets in here. And I think we're literally more than 72 hours out, and the timing on that is very challenging right now. Always got to do a little climatology. I screen saved that map of Pennsylvania from when Ben Reppert did 12-day trends a couple Fridays ago. So you're looking at the average highs and lows today across the state. We're still at rock bottom here in State College with that 3420. It doesn't get any lower than that, but it's going to start going up soon. Sun's now rising before 7:30 and setting almost at 5:30. Still pretty far south of east and south of west, though, respectively. At solar noon today, the sun was about 32 degrees above the horizon. That's going up by about 2 degrees per week, so you'll really notice that. And we're gaining about 15 minutes of daylight per week right now. It's a little more than 2 minutes a day. Updating on the Great Lakes, Erie's now almost 90% ice covered. Last year at this time, it was about 23% ice covered. And combined, the Great Lakes are about 40% ice covered right now. Much of this happening really in the last 2 weeks. I always show this slide when I do one of these in the winter because this is the climatology of big snowstorms in Pennsylvania, State College, Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, and Philly on there. And basically you're just plotting based on the start date of the snowstorm, when big snowstorms tend to happen in Pennsylvania. And as I like to say here in Happy Valley, it ain't over till it's over, because even in early March, that's actually when the peak is for big snowstorms in State College, though we haven't had one in recent Marches, not that I can remember. Bottom line, here in central Pennsylvania, winter can go on forever. So how about if we switch over and talk about the weather a little bit, now that I've yammered on for about 9 minutes about other things. I hope there's not a lot of lag time, and you can see a browser now. I find that many times it helps to begin with the National Weather Service advisories because they tell you a lot about what's going on, and not only what's going on, but what might go on soon. A couple things catch my eye here. The high wind warnings, northern plains, northern Rockies, a pretty dynamic area of low pressure is straddling the US-Canadian border right now. That'll mainly head east and then east-northeast and drag a front with it. And that front will then kind of stall. And that'll be the focal point for these winter storm watches that are currently in effect, Kansas and Oklahoma into the lower lakes. And my eye is also drawn a little bit to that. What is that down there in Texas? Flood watch? Because there's already a return out of the Gulf. You can see it in the isobars. You can see it in the precipitable water. And that's going to play a role in bringing all kinds of moisture out of the Gulf that's going to overrun that front, so that when the next area of strong high pressure builds in, and it's going to be a doozy with central pressures in about 1045 millibars, that'll be the low level cold air that will be overrun by this feed from the Gulf. There's your the latest analysis from the Weather Prediction Center. Valid at 15Z today. There's that feisty area of low pressure analyzed in southern Canada right now. High pressure dominating us, kind of cresting right over us, not much in the way of wind. To our south, though, you can see a couple isobars. There's actually a bit of an onshore flow beginning, and the short range models are actually suggesting that late tonight with a light southeast wind, there could be some creeping clouds here in central Pennsylvania. So I'm kind of put that in the forecast. Not really all that exciting, but that'll help keep temperatures up a little bit tonight. This warm front here portends warmer air on our doorstep. Here's a current map. Is that current? Let's see if we can get it a little more current. Looks like hopefully you can see a map of station models. It's up to 25 at the airport. Really not much of the way of wind here right now. I need to go walk the dog, I think. Should be pretty pleasant out there. 25 with no wind is going to feel great. You can already see signs, though, that southeast wind developing light, but southeasterly just to our west, and along the coast, it's already onshore. Current water vapor imagery. There's actually a bit of a short wave at 500 millibars. We'll see it in the vorticity in a bit. That's sponsoring some clouds, mainly to our south. That's what's going on here off the Delmarva. You can see a closed or nearly closed circulation in Texas. That's ahead of that, you're seeing an eruption of rain, and that's sort of that return from the Gulf already showing up. You can see that dynamic system up near the US-Canadian border, and signs of a disturbance coming in just off the southern and western part of this screen. And that's going to play a role because there's a vortmax in there that's going to, ahead of it, going to help the flow go very southwesterly here, sort of parallel to that boundary. And so that boundary that sets up across the middle of the country won't move very far once it sets up. I guess it's worth checking out the radar as well. Really not a lot going on. You could say that the nor'easter has sort of taken all the moisture out to sea. It's going to take just a little bit to recharge, but you can already see the recharging in Texas. Probably doesn't hurt to show the progression of surface maps courtesy of the Weather Prediction Center. By the middle of tonight, you can kind of see in the isobars here, maybe if you play the geostrophic game, it's kind of a bit of a southeast wind here. And that's the concern for tonight. By Wednesday morning, well, it's amazing. You go from Tuesday morning and you can kind of see the connection to the Gulf. And then by Wednesday morning, 24 hours later, it's going gangbusters with a 1048 high analyzed coming out of Canada, front setting up, draped from the eastern lakes into Texas. And of course, north of that is where things get nasty. Before we get to that, I thought let's take care of tonight and tomorrow, first of all, locally, using the NAM 3K. This is later today, 5 o'clock, right around dinner time. You can see by that time a bit of a light southeast flow setting up here. It's not a very strong southeast flow, but if you switch on over to the low cloud fraction, you can kind of see late tonight. You're at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6, 7 o'clock. You get the sense that by late tonight, we might bring some low clouds in to central PA. And that kind of lingers tomorrow as well. So I don't think tomorrow will feature as much sunshine as today. But because we won't be starting as cold, and there will be a little bit of sunshine, and there will be at least a bit of a southerly component to the wind. I think we will tomorrow crack the freezing mark by a couple degrees. Let's go big picture now. I'm still kind of fond of, since we're doing this on a computer, you're sitting in front of a computer. You don't have to strain your eyes to see this projected on a big screen. So I feel like it's okay to show because we can all kind of see it together. And I do like having the various levels on the screen at the same time. So sort of focusing on the big picture here. First of all, establishing this link to the Gulf. If you look at the bottom left panel, you see that dollop of high relative humidity in Texas begin to expand northward. So you make the connection to the Gulf of Mexico very obviously. You can kind of see that in the isobars. If you look at the sea level pressure on the middle screen on top, you've got several isobars. I remember it was Paul Knight used to talk about if you can get 3 isobars out of the Gulf of Mexico, that's usually a pretty good sign. I think it was 3 isobars. Even if it's not, I can see 3 isobars out of the Gulf of Mexico there by this evening, Tuesday 0Z, to begin sort of this influx of Gulf moisture. That's then, you can see the front setting up in the kinking of the isobars here. Front would be attached to that sort of meso low over Lake Erie. Front is right in here. This is, well, I've skipped ahead a bit here. let's back up. So there's Wednesday 0Z. This is end of the day tomorrow. This is 7 p.m. tomorrow. And you can see the front on the relative humidity panel. You can see it on the precipitation forecast. And you can kind of see it in the isobars. It would be right in here, this kink in the isobars. Leading edge of the cold air, sort of on the warm side of that 540 line, is where that front would be. Again, that's tomorrow evening, Tuesday evening. And by Wednesday afternoon, sort of a mini area of low pressure over Lake Erie. The front is setting up across the Ohio Valley into North Texas. All kinds of precipitation has broken out. Much of it is on the cold side of the 850 line. And look at the 500 millibar flow. Because of that next disturbance rolling into the southwest, the 500 millibar flow ahead of it is southwesterly. So it's basically parallel to the front at 500. But beneath that, you're bringing in all kinds of Gulf air. So this has the settings to get really ugly in parts of the southern plains, the middle Mississippi Valley, into the Ohio Valley, on the cold side of that front. And precipitable water values well above average on this bottom right chart. Let me go to just an ensemble product here so we can kind of see this. Everything else prior to this was just the GFS, which is one deterministic model. So let's look at the 12Z GEFS, which tells a similar story. Here's the initialization. You can see that one disturbance. Well, first of all, what do we see here? I mentioned a disturbance going by to our south. You can see that in the vorticity here. There were some clouds to our south ahead of that. You can see the disturbance in Texas. You can see the next disturbance coming into the southwest and that southwesterly flow. This is Thursday 0Z setting up ahead of that disturbance. So it really won't be until this southern disturbance goes by that the front kind of kicks through here. If we go to the precipitable water normalized anomaly, this is late in the day, Wednesday. You can see anywhere in green, precipitable water is above average. And some of these greens are deep enough that it's 2 standard deviations above average. And it's that kind of a precipitable water anomaly that can lead to some extreme precipitation amounts. And if we switch on over to the sea level pressure, it's easy to find where the boundary is, at least in the mean, at 0Z Thursday. So this would be Wednesday at 7 p.m. The boundary would be about on Erie's doorstep. It might be through Erie. This is, of course, an average. But look at that area of high pressure. That's a 1048 high in the mean. This is the average of 30 runs. So there's some serious cold air up here. And when you look at the thermodynamics, of course, you know what this is going to show. At 850 millibars, huge negative anomaly to the north of the front and a fairly significant positive anomaly to the south of the front. And so you got this boundary set up. I love this WPC ensemble product that's blending about 60 different model runs. It's got some European model in it. It's got some GEFS. It's got the NBM. And what you're looking at there is the 48-hour probability of getting at least 4 inches of snow, ending at 12Z Thursday. So this is Tuesday 12Z to Thursday 12Z. That's the snow part. Even if you increase the threshold to 8 inches, there's a ribbon of greater than 80% in parts of Illinois and Indiana. So I need to give my daughter a call out in West Lafayette and let her know that she should be ready for this. Now, if you look at the freezing rain part of this, and once again, let's look at the 48-hour period ending at 12Z Thursday. So as you would expect, the freezing rain probabilities are a little bit south of the snow probabilities, but there's still a portion of southeast Missouri there that's above 80% in getting 1/10 of an inch. And let's see, about a 1/4 inch of ice. Southeast Missouri seems to be the bullseye. Of order about a 50% probability. And remember, this is an ensemble of about 60 different members. So this is fixing to be a fairly significant winter weather event. Sure, the Weather Channel will name it. I don't know what comes after Keenan or whatever the last one was, but this one seems ripe to be named for what it's worth. If you look at the extended range product from that ensemble, this is the day 4. So this would be the 24-hour period ending Friday at 12Z. This is the probability from that same ensemble of exceeding a 1/4 inch liquid equivalent of snow and sleet. And so you can see some probabilities here of order, let's see, sort of into the 50 to 70% range, tickling extreme northwestern Pennsylvania in this day 4 outlook. I thought we would close then, at least this part of it. I see I'm at 28 minutes. By looking at, go back to a deterministic model where we can get some skew-Ts, just to maybe come up with a potential scenario here in Happy Valley. So it looks like, if you believe the deterministic GFS and the NAM as well, that precip gets in here Wednesday night. It's probably rain, maybe in some of the colder parts north of here. If the surface temperature can go below freezing Wednesday night, maybe you have some freezing rain, but I think it's mostly probably just cold liquid. And then during the day Thursday, again, the progression of the cold air is still up for grabs. Seems to me I would probably lean towards mostly rain here during the day on Thursday, simply because it's the daylight, which I realize if the low-level cold air comes in, it's going to change to freezing rain. And it doesn't matter if it's daylight or not. But I'm gonna go with a slower progression of the cold air, so that let's look at a skew-T Thursday afternoon. We're still hanging on to a pretty thick warm layer aloft. As long as that surface temperature stays above freezing, this is just going to be a cold rain. By late in the day on Thursday, the GFS at least has the cold air in at the surface. And so we're freezing rain or sleeting by then. This is 7 o'clock Thursday evening. Again, this is a deterministic forecast. I'm not sure that I trust it, but this is really intended to be for entertainment purposes, to see the progression as we switch from one air mass into another. This is the middle of Thursday night. This would probably be sleet right on the edge of being snow. There's just enough of an above freezing layer there that I can see some snowflakes melting. And then by Friday at 12Z, whatever moisture is left, and I think this is still up for grabs, we would be snowing here. My sense, if I had to, if I had a young child still who wanted to know about 2-hour delays or snow days this week in central Pennsylvania, I think the money would be on Friday morning if there was going to be something nasty weather-wise for the morning commute. And then once we get into the cold side, the snow will end and it just gets cold for the weekend. That's sort of your scenario. And so with that potential scenario out there, it's worth just some sort of a forecast. Really not a lot going on the next, shall we say, 60 hours. Tonight, not as cold as recent nights. There'll be some clouds coming in late, I think, probably some low clouds, 15 for a low maybe. Clouds and a little bit of sun tomorrow. I don't think tomorrow's completely cloudy. Call it seasonably cold. We get above freezing. Wednesday, with the approach of the system from the west, I'm thinking it's probably mainly cloudy Wednesday, a bit milder, up to 39. Rain showers, or maybe in some of the colder hollows of central and northern Pennsylvania, where the surface temperature is below freezing Wednesday night. It starts as a little bit of ice. And then Thursday, we'll go with periods of rain, maybe a continuous rain, changing to freezing rain and sleet probably later in the day or at night. And we'll go with, and again, I don't know if that's a morning high, if it's an afternoon high, but as long as we're on the warm side of the front, we got a shot to get into the low 40s before it gets colder on Friday and into the weekend. So that's kind of how I see things. As long as I'm on a roll, let me see what the chat, if there's anything in there that I think they already named it. Okay. Yeah, okay, they already named it. Landon. All right, well, that's the last time I'm going to say Landon. Nothing against my friends at the Weather Channel. So let me just show my last slide, and then we can chat if there are questions. So here is on your left what the winter looks like. This is the first 60 days of meteorological winter. Let me just make that really big for the moment. So that is winter so far. Of course, you know as well as I do that this is a tale of 2 months in State College, where we are still holding on to the warmth we banked in December for us to be above average here. If you look at the CPC forecast, if I was the Climate Prediction Center, I'd probably want winter to end right about now, because the correlation coefficient is going to be pretty good between that outlook and the temperature. Over on the right is the standard. If you mush together previous La Niñas, this is what you get in terms of a temperature anomaly during the winter. So I think the CPC, they were playing off of that, sprinkling in a little bit of global warming, and that's kind of where they came up with their outlook. Of course, it's pretty much the same outlook they used last winter, because there was a La Nina last winter. It didn't work last winter. Didn't work at all. The La Nina analog was actually terrible last winter. But so far this winter, it's doing okay. So if anybody wants to chime in, sorry I was so wishy-washy about Thursday and Friday, but I think we kind of know the scenario. We don't know the timing. And so the impacts here in central Pennsylvania are murky, I think. But suffice it to say, if you have to drive to campus on Friday morning, it could be an interesting commute. Or if you have to walk to class on Friday morning. Any thoughts from anybody?
Yeah, if anybody didn't see my message in the chat, feel free if you have any questions, throw it in the chat for Dr. Nese. One thing, it's not really related to this particular setup or the storm that's coming for the middle and later part of the week, but I know the weather challenge city right now is Houston, Texas, and you're talking about the disturbance that was in Texas. So I don't know if you have any thoughts for like precipitation for, I guess, starting at 6Z. That would be the forecast period starting Tuesday 6Z.
Well, do I have any thoughts?
Yeah.
Well, I always have thoughts. I mean, there's the reality. That's a pretty vigorous upper level disturbance. So I got to believe it's already, if it's not precipitating in Houston right now, it should be soon, right? You use IAH?
We're actually using HOU for this.
Hobby?
Yes.
Okay. So they're already heavy rain. So what did you say? It starts at 6Z?
Yeah, 6Z tonight, or I guess overnight.
Well, I'd like to see where that 500 millibar disturbance, when the axis of that 500 millibar disturbance gets to their east. So I would be thinking about the location of that 500 millibar disturbance. So it certainly looks like somewhere around 12Z. You know, like to see the. Let me just look at the GFS, and maybe. Yeah, so once you lose that deep moisture, that's at 6Z right there. I'm sort of tempted to look at a bunch of skew T's here and see. According to that, you've already lost any decent lift. Yeah, it's not really picking up on. There's something there. It's 0Z. I don't know. Most of the lift is out of there by the time your forecast period begins. So to me, the challenge becomes: is there any leftover rain after 6Z? That's where the challenge is. That sounding at 6Z certainly still could be producing a little bit of rain, but it's going to be close. Good luck with that.
Thank you, and thanks for your thoughts on that.
That's a close call, my friend. That is a close call. Guess there still seem to be a few lingering showers in the backwash, even at 12Z. Yeah, it looks like the 6 to 12Z period will be the period where you need to worry about precip. I don't see anything. Nobody wants to chat. That's fine.
Did you happen to see Bill's comment?
Bill's comment about it is a strong high and upside potential is here for sleet snow. Fingers crossed. Yeah. I'm afraid I don't root for sleet and snow as much as I used to. But the upside is there. Yeah. I like the snow, not the sleet. Yeah.
I feel like of all the wintry precip types, sleet is just the most deflating. Like,
It is. It is.
Yeah.
At least freezing rain, you know to stay in and stay off of it. Sleet, you just look down at the ice pellets and say, oh, what you would have been if you were snow. All right, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much for doing this, Dr. Nese.
Sure.
Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
This meeting was recorded and it's going to go up on YouTube later. Looking forward to that for people that couldn't make it, getting a chance to see what the discussion was like today. So, yeah, with that, thank you very much for coming out today, Dr. Nese.
Welcome.
We'll see you around.
See you in person soon.
Yes. All right. Take it easy, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Dr. Nese. Take it easy.
Have yourself a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.